Welcome to Learn Jazz Bass with Matt Rubicki. I'm glad that you're here. We're talking about two essential bass lines today. Sing a Song of Song from Kenny Garrett and also The Great Black Narcissus from Joe Henderson with Ron Carter on bass. The reason we're talking about two lines is they both use a device that I call the interval ladder, and this is something that I want to teach to you so that you can use it for yourself. The idea behind an interval ladder is that you're creating a line where it's a very open voicing. So that means that the intervals between each note is quite far on purpose. It generally adds color and can especially add some interest when a chord doesn't change. So it's often associated with sort of modal tunes, or if you've got sort of a Latin sort of feel or a straight feel where there's a chord for a long time or it's slow. You can use this tool, interval ladder. And it can be as simple as just rearranging a triad or the notes of a chord that are contained within a chord, like in Sing a Song of Song from Kenny Garrett's album Songbook. So take a listen to this. So here he's just using, this is the great Nat Reeves on bass, and oh my gosh, talk about amazing intonation on this, especially with these large leaps. Really great to practice your intonation and play along with this. So he either wrote the line or Kenny Garrett wrote the line, and they are just rearranging the notes that are in the essential parts of the chord. The first is an E triad, essentially. And so we're starting with the root, E, and then we play the fifth, which is the sort of smallest leap we usually use in this idea. I mean, it can be whatever you want, but this is common to go root, fifth, and then he's putting the third of E, the E major triad, which is G sharp. He's putting it up the octave, so here in thumb position. And the same with the C major. He's playing C, and then the fifth, and then the major third here. That's really all it is. But when you commit to this as an idea, especially when you find some interesting movements for yourself, it can be really fun and add a tremendous amount of depth or texture to a tune that could potentially feel a little bit like static or boring. The other thing you can do is to use other parts of the chord, extensions, and that would be in something like Black Narcissus. Take a listen to this. So a lot of the harmony here plays around a minor 9 sound, and the tension 9, if you don't remember, would be the second degree of the major scale of that root. So if we've got A flat minor 9, we're thinking of an A flat major scale. What's the second degree of that? B flat. That's the 9 up the octave. And so this bass line that Ron Carter is playing, and very likely that he actually created himself, utilizes that 9th there. So he's playing again root 5th and then the 9 instead of the 3rd. So, but it's up here in thumb position. So A flat 5th, A flat to E flat, and then the 9 is B flat. So those are all fifths from each other. And you may remember in another video I did early on that I'll link to here in the video, where I'm talking about actually practicing consecutive fifths on the bass. Very fun and challenging exercise. So, so A flat, E flat, B flat, there. And this idea continues for the other chords like F sharp minor 9, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. That's the 9. Whoops. So again, great exercise for intonation all around and for understanding the fingerboard, especially the way Ron does it, because this harmonic movement that Joe Henderson wrote is a little bit unusual, or it's more modern, quote unquote, so it doesn't go by fourths or steps. And so you have to sort of find ways around it, especially if we're trying to mimic what Ron did here in thumb position. There's a video that I'll link to below from a relatively recent Emmett's Place where Larry Grenadier they are playing this tune. Larry Grenadier is playing the bass, and he's actually doing an interesting fingering thing where he's playing the A flat with 1, and then the E flat with 1, and then the B flat with the 3rd, I think. But so like that. I'm not used to that particular thing. He nails it, of course. That isn't something I normally think of, to go 1 to 1 for the leap of a fifth. It makes sense for him. You may have seen me do in the video here, what I'm doing instead, and I don't know that Ron did this, I don't really hear this, but I'm using my thumb below the A. So I'm using my thumb on the A flat so that I don't have to move my hand at all. If I have my thumb on A flat, my first finger on E flat, and my 3rd finger on B flat. Nonetheless, that's a good way to finger it too if you want to do that. And there's a couple interesting things I want to point out in this particular PDF I'm giving you of Black Narcissus. It's close to what the legal rule book has, but there's one really big change that in both, the form is sort of short, and so they repeat the melody twice. On the second time, there's some variations that are interesting that are in the chart, but also both times on the last system, there's the given chord is F major 7 flat 5. That is a very, I think, amalgamated guess of probably what the harmony actually is. I'm not sure. I think that's, simplified probably from what's actually happening there. But one important moment is that I truly believe Ron Carter's playing E natural on the F major 7 flat 5, which is an interesting choice, and gives this very dissonant crunch right there in that beat and a half. This is in 3, so it's a dotted quarter note. If you listen really carefully to that moment in both the head choruses, you'll hear a rip and crunch there that I really tried my best to discern. I think he's playing E natural, and the second time he plays open E, I'm pretty sure. And that gives it a tritone because it goes to B flat, major flat 5. So gives it that kind of sound, which increases the element of tension there at the end of the form when everybody is getting louder. The intensity goes from this very calm, placid thing at the beginning all the way up to the end of the chorus becomes very intense, and that certainly adds to that. Whether that was necessarily conscious on Ron Carter's part, I don't know, but it certainly helped with that. So again, this general idea is super helpful when you find yourself in instances where you just need something different. The chords don't change, the tune feels a little bit maybe boring, you can put it in a lot of places, and I've definitely used this general idea many times. That works a lot in a lot of instances when the feel is straight. So experiment, try different things, and I wouldn't say it makes a whole lot of sense to go crazy, like don't try to do lowest to highest. I mean, you could, but what we're trying to do is create an independent melody that sits against what's happening in the song and adds this texture and character and color. Explore this open voicing idea where you're taking the third or the fifth or the seventh and putting it up the octave. Have that second note be something else. Maybe you're doing root to the flat seven to the natural third, like a C7 chord. If I go C, B flat to E, that sort of works, but that tritone's a little bit small, so I might go C, B flat, G instead. Hope that makes sense. So C, B flat, G. So I'm not playing the third there because I'm experimenting with opening up that voicing, so to speak. Before I did C, B flat, that B flat to E, it's fine, it's good, but I'm trying to push how wide these intervals are and still retain some sense of musicality. I hope that this was helpful for you. Got PDFs below for your study, and I really encourage you to be sure to check out these tunes. I do think that Sing a Song of Song is, from my generation, an essential line, and most of us know it. If you haven't checked it out, it's really fun to play. Definitely listen to it. Kenny Kirkland on piano, unbelievable. Kenny Garrett, unbelievable. Jeff Tain Watts on drums, unbelievable. Like, check it out. Really fun to play. The solos just happen on the A section, this repeating 4 chords. And that's really fun. Black Narcissus is a wonderful challenge. Some people do play that. Certainly this is a distinctive line from Ron Carter. Again, thanks for joining me. Hope it was helpful. Always remember, straight ahead and strive for tone.